Emma's house had awakened with life, but with every passing day, she sensed the air thickening with something else, something complicated, unspoken and far harder to manage than noise or clutter. It began with the glances, small, fleeting, almost innocent at first. She'd be setting the table for dinner, and when she looked up, Daniel's eyes would be on her. Not in the casual way a friend looks, but with a weight that made her heartbeat stumble. He would quickly turn away, focusing on his glass of water or asking Chloe about her day. But Emma felt it every time, and she hated how much she wanted to feel it again. Daniel had always been steady, dependable, the kind of man who carried calmness into every room. When Rebecca was alive, Emma used to admire how deeply he loved his wife, how his hand always reached for hers, how his laughter softened whenever she entered the room. Losing Rebecca had broken him, and Emma respected his grief. But now, months later, when his hand brushed against hers as he passed her a bowl of salad, she felt a spark she couldn't deny. She told herself it was nothing, a trick of loneliness, a cruel game of the heart. Yet that night, when she walked into the living room and saw Chloe curled against Daniel's shoulder, laughing at something he had said, Emma froze. It wasn't what she said, it was what she felt. A sudden pang, sharp and heavy, as if the floor had shifted beneath her. Chloe's laughter was light, almost intimate. And Daniel's smile, though faint, was real. Emma slipped away quietly, retreating to her room. She closed the door and leaned against it, pressing a hand to her chest. What am I doing? She thought. He's not mine. He was never mine. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing Chloe's laughter, seeing Daniel's faint smile, feeling the ache of something she didn't want to name. She tossed and turned until the early hours, when exhaustion finally claimed her. The next afternoon, Noah found her sitting on the porch, staring at the rain-soaked garden. He had his guitar slung across his back, his expression curious but gentle. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft, unforced a smile. "Of course. Why wouldn't I be?" Noah sat beside her, resting the guitar against the railing. For a moment, he said nothing, just watched the rain with her. Then, quietly, he spoke words that struck her like lightning. "You've been saving everyone else, Emma, Chloe, Daniel, even me. But who's saving you?" Her breath caught. She looked at him, startled by the maturity in his voice. He was only 19, but in that moment, he didn't feel like a boy. His dark eyes held something steady, something that saw straight through her defenses. "I don't need saving," she whispered, though the words felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter. Noah gave her a faint smile. "That's what people say when they need it most." For a moment, Emma couldn't look at him. She stared at the garden, blinking back tears she didn't want him to see. Noah didn't push her. He simply strummed a quiet tune on his guitar, the sound low and soothing until her breathing calmed again. But later, alone in her room, Emma replayed his words. "Who's saving you?" She had let them all in, yes. But now she wasn't sure if she had done it to help them more, because she needed them more than she dared to admit. The days grew heavier with unspoken tension. Chloe began to glow again, her heartbreak fading as she spent more time with Daniel. Emma noticed how her sister's eyes lit up whenever Daniel entered the room, how she laughed louder at his quiet jokes, how she leaned closer to him than necessary. Emma tried to tell herself it was harmless, that Chloe was simply grateful for his company. But deep down, she knew better. One evening as Emma passed the kitchen, she heard Chloe's voice, soft, almost shy. "Daniel, do you ever think about starting over?" Emma stopped, her hand gripping the wall. She couldn't hear his answer, his voice was too low, but she heard Chloe's soft laugh, followed by the clink of glasses. Her stomach twisted and she hurried upstairs, before either of them saw her. That night, Emma sat at her vanity, staring at her reflection. She looked tired, older than she remembered. Was she jealous? Was she falling for Daniel? Or was it just the comfort of his presence? And what about Chloe? Was Emma ready to step aside? To watch her sister take the one man who had begun to make her heart beat again? She didn't have the answers. All she knew was that her heart was tangled and every choice felt like betrayal. Of herself, of Chloe, of the fragile peace she had built. Meanwhile, Noah's presence grew stronger in her life. He wasn't like other 19-year-olds Emma knew. He was thoughtful, observant, carrying a maturity born from a complicated family. Sometimes he'd sit with her in the evenings, just talking about music or dreams or the fear of leaving home. Other times, he'd simply sit in silence, offering her the kind of companionship she hadn't realized she needed. One evening, he caught her staring out the window again, lost in thought. "You're thinking too much," he teased gently. Emma smiled faintly. Maybe, he echoed, leaning closer. Or definitely. She laughed softly, shaking her head. Definitely. The laughter faded, but the closeness lingered. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and Emma felt something unexpected stir inside her. She quickly looked away, embarrassed by the thought. By the way her heart reacted, he's just a boy, she told herself. A boy I helped raise. Nothing more. But deep down, she knew Noah saw her in a way no one else did. He saw past her strength, past her careful smiles, straight into the loneliness she tried to hide. And that terrified her. As the weeks passed, Emma realized her home had become a mirror of her heart, crowded, complicated, filled with love and longing. Yet fragile enough to break at any moment. She had let them all in. But now she wondered if she had let them in too far, because she could no longer tell whose feelings belonged to whom. Was Daniel reaching for her, or for Chloe? Was Noah's care for her innocent, or something deeper? And was she strong enough to face the storm that was brewing inside the very walls of her own home? Standing at the window one night, rain falling against the glass once again, Emma whispered to herself, "I don't know how long this house can hold us all." And in her heart, she knew something had to break. Emma Williams stood by the wide living room window of her home in Seattle, watching the evening rain draw silver streaks across the glass. The world outside looked blurred and restless, while her house remained painfully still. The quiet should have comforted her was, after all, the very thing she once longed for during the endless arguments and sharp silences of her marriage. But now, a year after the divorce, she had discovered that quietness was not peace. It was loneliness. Dressed in silence, she lived in a lovely house on a quiet street with polished wooden floors, tall shelves filled with books she once loved to read, and a kitchen that smelled faintly of vanilla and lemon polish. To anyone else, it might have looked like the perfect home, but to Emma, it had begun to feel more like an empty museum rooms frozen in time, waiting for something or someone to bring them back to life. Most evenings followed the same rhythm. She came home from work, placed her handbag neatly on the side table, reheated something simple for dinner, and sat at the small dining table meant for six, eating alone while scrolling through her phone. Afterward, she would wash her plate, dry it carefully, and return it to the same cabinet, everything precise, everything in its place. Then she'd sit on the couch, scrolling channels she'd never really watched until sleep finally carried her away. Her friends often told her she should start dating again. "You're only 36, they'd say. "You're beautiful, independent you. Can't just stop living?" Kama would laugh softly, dismiss their words with a shake of her head, and insist she was fine. But deep inside, she wasn't. Fine was just a mask she wore when people asked questions she didn't want to answer. The truth was simple. Emma longed for voices in her home, for footsteps that weren't her own, for laughter that spilled into the kitchen late at night. She longed for connection, the kind that made life messy but also meaningful. Yet she was terrified to admit it, even to herself. Letting people in meant risking heartbreak again. And heartbreak was something she had promised she'd never go through twice. That promise began to unravel one Wednesday evening when her phone lit up with her younger sister Chloe's name. "Em, I can't stay with him anymore. Chloe's voice cracked through the line. It's over. I left. Emma's chest tightened. Chloe had always been the free spirit, bright, spontaneous, reckless with love. Emma had spent years warning her about bad choices, but Chloe always followed her heart anyway. And now, here she was, heartbroken and alone. "You have somewhere to go?" Emma asked, her voice softer than she intended. "No," Chloe admitted. Can I stay with you for a little while? Just until I figure things out?" Emma hesitated. She pictured the quiet she had grown used to, the order she clung to. She imagined Chloe's clothes scattered across the couch, her late-night calls, her endless stories. Opening her door meant surrendering control of the calm she had built around herself like armor. But then Emma heard the trembling in her sister's voice, the loneliness that mirrored her own. "Of course, Chloe," she whispered. "Come home." 2 days later, another call came, this time from Daniel Hart, a man Emma hadn't spoken to in months. Daniel was an old friend, someone she and her ex-husband had once shared dinners and vacations with. But Daniel's world had shattered when his wife Rebecca passed away suddenly 6 months ago. Since then, he had withdrawn from everyone. "Emma," his voice was heavy, raw. "I know this is strange, but I can't stay in that house anymore. Everything reminds me of her. I need to get away, just for a while. Could I maybe stay at your place?" Emma's breath caught. Daniel's pain was not unfamiliar. She recognized the hollow sound of someone carrying a broken heart. Opening her door to him would be different from Chloe. Chloe brought chaos, but Daniel brought sorrow, and sorrow was contagious. Still, Emma couldn't say no. She owed him compassion, and truthfully, she couldn't stand the thought of him alone in that empty house. "Yes, Daniel," she said gently. "Come." And as if fate wanted to test her completely, the very next week she received a message that pulled her in another direction. It was from Noah, her ex-husband's son from a previous relationship. Though Noah wasn't her blood, she had helped raise him during her marriage. He was 19 now, preparing for college. His message was short but honest. "Emma, I don't want to stay with Dad before school starts. Too much tension. Can I crash with you for a bit?" Emma stared at the words on her screen. Noah had always been kind to her, more like a younger brother than a stepson. But letting him stay meant welcoming a reminder of her failed marriage. It meant facing the past she was trying to forget. Her hand hovered over the phone, but in the end she typed back, "Of course, Noah. You're always welcome here." Evening, Emma stood in the hallway of her once quiet house, cool, looking at the doors that would soon open and close with new life. She felt a nervous flutter in her chest, a mix of fear and something else she hadn't felt in a long time, anticipation. As the rain continued to fall outside, she whispered to herself words she didn't fully understand yet. "I let them all in." What she couldn't see then was how much those words would change the course of her life. What began as an act of kindness would soon become a journey of rediscovering herself, of facing tangled emotions, and of learning that sometimes the people we let into our homes are the very ones who heal the hidden corners of our hearts. The first night Chloe arrived, Emma felt her home shift. Her younger sister breezed through the front door with 2 suitcases, a box of shoes, and a whirlwind of perfume that filled the hallway. Chloe was only 28, with her long blonde hair tied in a messy knot and her green eyes still swollen from crying. She tried to smile as she set her bags down, but Emma could see the cracks beneath her makeup. "I promise I won't be in the way," Chloe said, her voice shaking with a mix of pride and embarrassment. "Just until I figure out my next step." Emma pulled her into a hug. "You're not in the way. This is your home too." But later that night, as Chloe played music softly in the guest room and called a friend at midnight, Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her once quiet sanctuary was already different. She wondered if she had made the right choice. But then she reminded herself loneliness wasn't the life she wanted either. Within days, Chloe's presence transformed the house. The stillness was replaced with movement. Shoes appeared at odd Corners, makeup cluttered the bathroom counter. Bright laughter echoed from the kitchen at hours Emma wasn't used to. It was inconvenient, yes, but it was also strangely comforting. Then Daniel arrived. He came on a Friday evening carrying nothing but a duffel bag and the heaviness of grief etched into his face. His once strong shoulders were slouched, his dark brown eyes dulled. Emma remembered him as the man who used to make Rebecca laugh so loudly during dinner parties that the neighbors would complain. Now he barely spoke above a whisper. "Thank you," he said as he stepped inside, his voice hoarse. "I didn't know where else to go." "You don't need to thank me," Emma replied gently. "You're not alone, Daniel. Not here." Gave her a sad, fleeting smile, the kind of smile that held gratitude but also sorrow. She showed him to the spare room, and later that night she caught him sitting in the living room with the lights off, staring at the fireplace. For a moment, she wanted to reach out to tell him he didn't have to carry his grief by himself. But she hesitated, afraid of saying the wrong thing. Just when Emma thought her house couldn't hold more change, Noah arrived the following week. At 19, he was taller than she remembered, with messy dark hair and a guitar slung over his shoulder. He grinned awkwardly at her when she opened the door. "Hey, Emma, thanks for letting me stay. Dad's, well, you know." Emma's heart softened. "You don't need to explain, Noah. Come in." He dropped his bag in the hallway and looked around with wide eyes. "This place feels the same, but different. Like it's warmer now.